Whatever.
We're live.
Hello.
We're live and we're on deck. We're on the deck, ready to go. Welcome.
We're both lying on deck.
On the deck of the ship, ready to move.
Okay.
Not baseball on deck.
Right.
I know it's confusing because I'm usually a baseball guy.
Yeah, no. I am both at home plate and ready to hit.
That's right. Did you see the clip this week of the Arizona hitters?
No.
So Arizona Diamondbacks, nobody's going to care, but they have a rookie of the year this year, Corbin Carroll.
Yeah.
He's amazing. So he was in the on-deck circle,
Mhm.
and the guy in front of him, also a left-handed hitter,
Okay.
hit a home run.
Hmm.
But the way the camera angle was, the swings that he was trying to time it up in the on-deck circle,
Mhm.
they're identical swings.
Huh.
In the camera angle, and then it's like synchronized batting.
Hmm.
It was really cool.
The clip I've been watching repeatedly of baseball all week is Jose Ramirez knocking out Tim Anderson. So that's just a little taste of home.
And he was getting beat.
Yeah. Huh?
And then this right came out of nowhere and just
Yep.
got him. Baseball.
Yeah.
That's why you're watching. The Tuesday breakdown
Mhm.
is to have us talk baseball. No, that's not interesting to anybody but us. But anyway, welcome. I'm Jeff. This
I'm
is
John.
John. John is our youth pastor. If you haven't met him, he's a good friend. And since I did not preach the sermon this last Sunday, Gino did. I thought I should have a special guest in the Tuesday breakdown. So I asked John and not Gino.
Yeah.
Because that's how we roll around here.
Mhm.
We're not smart. Actually, what I wanted to talk about is some of the stuff going on as we ramp up to the fall. To give you guys a behind the curtain look at what pastors and staff members go through in August. And probably families are doing this as well in our community, trying to solve school again and what's going to happen on the nights of the week. And is little Jimmy going to be in soccer or not?
If you have a football player in your family, you haven't seen them for at least a month and a half at this point.
Band camp is usually where I lose my kids in August.
Mm-hmm.
Orchestra camp was what Jorah's been doing.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is for us to kind of bounce some commentary your way about what goes on in our mind and also field some questions if you have them, if you're watching live. Sometimes we like to just walk into each other's office and ask a theological question and make the other one go like, oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Or, really? Why would you ask that? You should know that.
Yeah.
You've been to seminary. What's your problem?
That's more rare.
That's more rare.
That's true.
Yeah. But we thought maybe if we're looking for ways to make it worth your time, we can ask these questions of each other and answer them in real time, which is something we are going to be doing more regularly moving forward. This is a big announcement.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
I don't have big announcement graphics, but let's pretend. Big announcement. John and I are going to do what white theologians have been doing now for about 10 years to greater or lesser effect, usually lesser.
Yeah.
And we're going to sit at microphones and record ourselves talking as a podcast for you to listen to. In fact, right down here next to my desk, we have all the equipment we need to start recording those.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the podcast going to be about, you ask?
We're just all sorts of stuff.
We're just going to name baseball players at each other.
That's right.
Edgar Renteria.
Mm-hmm. Glenn Allen Hill.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
No, it will be way more exciting than that.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be a fun banter where we tackle some issues of the day, some theological issues, maybe some movie reviews or book reviews, or we'll figure out what that's going to be. But we wanted to make kind of what this Tuesday breakdown has been for me, and I'm going to continue doing these, but put it into something you can listen to while you're driving and include John on it because he brings out the fun in me. And
I try.
And although the truth is he is smarter than me, I do want to also say I want to educate him on some things.
That's also true.
So we'll be doing that.
The second part, not the first.
And we'll be rolling that out this fall.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is.
So let's start with a beta test.
Okay, I have a question.
You have a theological question.
Not a theological question, a ministerial question.
Ministerial
I think it goes along with what you're talking about.
Okay.
Most tiring calendar month as a senior pastor.
Ooh, most tiring calendar month.
From 1 to 21 to 28 to 31, depending on your.
So the easy answer is going to be April, because that's when Easter is and Holy Week. But the truth is, after 25 years, Holy Week doesn't really exhaust me. Like,
Mhm.
I know what I'm doing in that week. That's not as heavy lifting.
You got the story down at this point.
Yeah. And I've learned to not try to be clever on
that's
those
true.
types of things.
That's true. See, for me, it's probably May, because that's April is, Holy Week with youth group is one thing, but May with all the graduation parties, with all the senior recitals and concerts and end of the year, all that stuff, it's a lot, because you're still technically going through the school year. And so you're still on the school year schedule as far as church is concerned, but it is just, we have a lot of graduates. We have a lot of kids that graduate. So that's a lot of parties. That's a lot of just extra Saturdays and things like that, that you would think it would be December, but no, nothing is like May.
This is going to sound weird. I think February might be the most tiring, not because there's a lot going on, but because of what has gone on without a break.
Sure.
So from September, you're doing all the fall stuff. You're in that rhythm routine. Then you get the big, heavy Christmas stuff that always upends all of the plans.
Sure.
And I've ranted on this many times that when we hit December, ministry just becomes something completely different.
How do you mean?
Well, sentimentality creeps in a lot.
Sure.
So it's like the rhythm of, we're going to do corporate worship and then we're going to preach through a book of the Bible. It's like it comes to a screeching halt while we sing Christmas carols and talk about Mary and Joseph, which, not bad, just it's like a completely different world.
Well, or it's another one of those seasons where you can, similar to Easter, get too cute, where you're now telling the birth narrative from the perspective of the donkey, or a fictional drummer boy, or
which, interestingly, God didn't give us that perspective in the Gospels.
Nope.
Maybe
in some of the Gnostic Gospels, but that wasn't God.
Maybe we should stick to what's in the text.
That's actually true.
That's a preference I have. Anyhow, but by the time, and then January and August I can set my watch to them. They're the times when frustration comes out in the people at church.
Okay, why?
Sometimes big grumbling, sometimes little grumbling, because we haven't seen each other very often, right? So Christmas season, people's schedules gets weird. There's usually that break between Christmas and New Year's that we take as a staff.
Sure.
Summer travel. So you're getting back into regular programming. But before you do, you have to process this kind of like, I don't feel connected. Boy, I haven't seen you preach, Jeff, in a while.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Or why are we launching it this way? Why are we doing it differently? And there's this just kind of, because everyone's out of the routine and they're facing getting back onto the treadmill, both metaphorically and in January, sometimes literally.
That's true.
There's this, do I really have to? Mixed with, boy, I really want what that can bring me.
Yeah.
And so just little mumblings here or there tend to come out. I don't feel connected, or I haven't seen you in a while. And it's all real. But the solution is coming right around the corner.
Yeah.
So January and August tend to be somewhat difficult. And so by the time February rolls around, it's cold. I have season affective disorder. I don't know if I do or not. I just like sunshine.
Yeah.
And warm. So usually February is my bottom of the bell curve.
Yeah. See, it's slightly different in that with the youth ministry schedule, summer is always insane. And so you have, I can see with people talking in August about, it feels like I'm disconnected. It feels like we don't have community. I think that's big after the holiday season or after big summer vacations, because you are with people you grew up with and naturally commune with and have community because you're on family vacations. You're going back for the holidays. It is sentimental, right? Sometimes good to be sentimental about that kind of stuff. But then you come back and it's like, oh, you're not my older brother. I don't know you as well as I know everybody else. And so that starved feeling for community can come in. But with youth group, like the week after Barnabas, everybody's just tired or sick. but they have seen a lot of each other. So it's a completely different feeling of, for August for youth group is kind of, we need to stop for a couple weeks. And then, when people start talking about the on-ramp in August, like I've been at the top of this ramp since Amped, which was in early June. So we're kind of coming back into the routine and those types of things. And so if there's complaint, or not really complaining, but just, hey, why don't we do something different? I think a lot of that is when people start seeing novel approaches in school or in different like classroom settings, or, hey, we did this at Young Life, or, hey, we did this over here. Can we try something different and add all that around? So that's usually more October, or maybe before Christmas, thinking that we have time to kind of implement it by January. So it's just different. It's a completely different schedule. And I'm sure James or Ali would probably have an even different idea of when theirs is the busiest and the most stressful, or Gino.
Yeah, I think with James, until VBS is over, summer doesn't start.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, and part of it is our own gift mixes as well as the church calendar. I am well known as not being a detail guy. Not that I can't. I mean, I can be a professional.
Yeah.
Sometimes. But I don't thrive in here are the 50 problems and the 500 solutions. For example, to wit, I threw out this idea last year. Last year we did the big mutual Super Sunday in July outside. We got the tent, we got the dunk tank. It was a great time. It was a wonderfully attended thing. We had perfect weather. It was just great. And so this year it was like, do we want to do that again? And I just threw out, why not do it in October and make it a fall festival? So it's not quite as hot. We can do pumpkin carving and hay rides, and it can coincide with our anniversary.
Dunk tank's out of the equation at that point. That doesn't hurt to bring up.
And no dunk tank. And it's our 60th anniversary this year. So wouldn't it be fun on anniversary Sunday to do the big outdoor as a fall festival? That's my contribution.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say I'm lazy, but there's a part of me that's like, great, I have done my vision casting.
I have ideaed.
So, and it was exciting, and we're looking forward to it. So today in staff meeting, Carla, who is awesome and very much thinks, okay, how do we solve these problems that Jeff has now just given us? Which is great. And it was, okay, how are we going to do food? And who's getting the bounce castles for the kids? Is that something Ali's going to do, or is that something James is going to do? And James is out right now with some surgery stuff. And
parking lot, lawn care, who does this? When do we do the sprinkler?
Are we going to have the baptistry? And if we are, is it going to be on this side of the tent or that side of the tent? And where's the stage going to go? Because we learned that the stage last time put the people too high for the people in the tent to see them. And these are all great questions.
They're all great questions, and I'm usually equipped to answer none of them.
And so if you take that and extrapolate it out to, what are we doing with adult ed this fall? What are we doing with small groups this fall? What about the ministry fair that's coming up? What about, are we going to change our service order? How are we going to train X person to do Y thing? If we're moving the YouTube sound mixing out of the fireside room and here into my office during the services, what does that do for the people in my office who are praying during that time? And they like,
I just zoned out.
This is this is the job, and this is what we have great people who are gifted at to do, and we participate with them, and we have to solve all that. And then when you announce something, like we have a huge announcement, we're also going to include in this video that gets announced, and the first person who responds has legitimate questions. But has not been in the meetings where all of these things are happening. I think it's safe to say those are the things that exhaust me.
I think it depends. For me, it's a good reminder that questions aren't always criticism.
No.
Sometimes they are, but 99% of the time it's just somebody that's hearing something and wants to know. And so my response is to try to find a good answer instead of getting individually defensive about it. I think that's just a good posture. That if somebody has a question, I just assume it's a genuine question, and there's no agenda behind it, because that's a weird way to think. And also, like, I love detail people because I'm not a detailed person. But I think it also depends on the thing, right? If I'm planning a game for youth group, I will have every contingency plan, every rule, okay, what's that one sophomore loophole kid gonna do to try to break this game? Those are the details I can invest in. And other people, I can tell when I'm explaining rules, or I'm like, oh, I'm the detail person about this, and they're like, it's just a game. Why does this matter? And it's like, yeah, I get it. So it's going to be different for different people.
And I think anytime you're in leadership
mm-hmm.
and you are casting vision that is going to create change,
mm-hmm.
you have to think about the why question.
Sure.
Because that's what everybody who is being asked to change is going to want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you get the why question out, the what question becomes a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
We learned this with Sandstone. We had a lot of meetings. We had a lot of conversations. Okay, we have space issues. We have parking issues. This is back in 2016. What are our options?
Mm-hmm.
And we had many, many, many meetings with leadership and elders and staff and at that point the trustees and the executive board. And it was like, okay, what are our options? And then we narrowed it down. These are our options. This is why we think this is the best option. But at some point you have to announce that.
Right.
And if the announcement was, hey, everybody, we are going to go multi-site and we've already solved it all. So just be good followers. Like, that's a recipe for disaster.
Sure.
But to say, and I know what we did is we put out this whole 4-page prospectus of this is a solution we think will fix this. Here's why.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we're asking. Here's what we're not asking. Here's why it won't be a video venue.
Sure.
Like all that stuff. And it's not like that just came out of my brain fully formed and everyone just had to deal with it. I mean, there was a lot of pitching in and asking questions and getting feedback for something that major.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
But if you're going to lead through change, here's the point I want to make. Most people, when they hear change, they process it in, what do I stand to lose? And people like me, I don't know about you, I initially process change with, what do I stand to gain?
Mm-hmm.
But that's how I'm wired.
Yeah.
And I know that's not how everyone's wired. So you have to bridge that gap in saying, this is what you stand to gain if we make this change. And here's why.
Yeah, I think it's a little different the way I process it. I think I usually process it thinking, okay, this is the effect of this decision in 3 years. And not this week where we have to figure out all of the details and working through all the processing. So the processing is going to be worth it. But I think there's another sort of common reaction in some people that's like, oh, that is going to make the next 2 weeks really hard. It's like, right, but it might make the next 3 years really good. But it's hard to, and honestly, that happened. We had a leaders meeting with our youth volunteer leaders who are great. And I threw an idea at them and I got the why question, and I went back and thought about it, and I was like, yeah, no, they're right.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good idea. So I came back to the next leader meeting. It was just like, yeah, based on everything I've looked at, that was, I think I usually refer to that moment as having Jurassic Parked it, which is I spent so much time thinking about whether or not I could, and I spent no time thinking about whether or not I should. And that was one of those like, no, this is a really good idea. And then, dinosaurs are eating people a week later. And I was like, oh,
I didn't think about it that way.
Whoops. Yep.
And I think I want to dispel any sort of perception, because I am driven, and we have had change here in my 10 years of things. Because I live in that world of constant analysis and thinking about the best practices and best solutions and what aren't we thinking of. And we talked about this Lego meeting. Mm-hmm. I haven't talked about it here yet. So one of the things I did with the pastors and with the elders, and I encouraged all of our teams to do it with our ministry leader gathering a couple weeks ago, is have what I call a Lego meeting. And what that means is look at the structures of what the ministry you're in has built. So we did this with the music ministry, with Carissa and Tanya and Edward and I. Okay, think about our service schedule. Let's just use that as an example. So when people walk in to the time they walk out of the sanctuary, we have built that structure based on what we know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the best way to do it? And to have the freedom to say, the only thing sacred here is the text of scripture, the gospel itself, right? The message.
Yeah.
Everything else is just methodology. So to have the freedom to say, let's tear apart all the Legos and lay them out all on the table and say, if we were to rebuild this today, how would we build it differently?
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that on a pastor's getaway day. We did that with the staff and with the elders, et cetera. And it's just a good time of the year to do that. Okay, if we're relaunching for the fall,
Sure.
what do we want to change? Because to not ask those questions and to say we never want to change anything,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're asking for a slow death,
Right.
or maybe a quick death. But to constantly be saying, how can we rebuild this? Well, how would we do it if it were different? And maybe at the end, it looks a lot like what it was before, but at least we've given ourselves permission to ask those questions.
Yeah. Well, and you may start to see, I've just been reading a new book that came out called The Evangelical Imagination, and it's really, really good. Karen Swallow Prior. You should read it. But it's basically talking about when you start to look at sort of large trends in evangelicalism on the whole. She talks about it in that way. It's like a house that's been built. And as there have been a lot of fractures and destruction and problematic things that are going on in evangelicalism, we're starting to see that there may be some things about the way in which the house was built that are a little more Victorian than actually biblical. And she has a really interesting illustration where she says it's not like the wallpaper, it's not like the front porch, it's not the floor, but it's the door joists, or the floor joists and the door jambs and all these things that have been sort of covered up and wallpapered, so that when you start to take something apart, you go, oh, I didn't actually know that was
Holding it up.
How that was holding this thing up. So part of it too is when you start to seek change in ministry and you start to take some things down, like, oh wait, is this the foundational pillar that we built this on? Because that's just, maybe that's, in a lot of youth groups, for example, that's behavioralism, right? Oh wait, that's not actually what we're going for. That's just moral improvement apart from Jesus. Like, we just kind of papered over that and called it, discipleship, and that wasn't great.
Or
So,
what you experienced very personally, where it was a major pillar needed in the 50s,
yeah,
that was built on, but now isn't as divisive or as pillarish.
Yeah.
So in particular, in the 50s, one of the biggest things to determine whether or not you took the Bible as the sole authority and inerrant and all that was a position on the millennium of premillennialism. And that was the separation between you really believe your Bible or you don't. And there wasn't a nuanced conversation. It was just a line in the sand. And really, it was a correct line in the sand for the time.
Yeah.
But after that line was drawn, it got papered over with all sorts of dispensationalism and different other views. And
a lot of charts. A lot of charts covered that wall.
So now that there is way more nuance in that conversation, and it can be kind of, you're peeling off the wallpaper and you're like, well, does millennialism, a particular position on that, have to be one of our pillars? Well, no.
Right.
And so you come out of seminary thinking, I can't serve in the free church because they still are, they keep re-wallpapering this pillar. And finally, the free church as a denomination says, we don't need this pillar.
Yeah.
We needed it in the 50s. We don't need it now.
Well, and that's part of the structural change of the thing, is there were a lot of people, part of the difficulty of the argument for changing the language were that you had people that thought it was, changing a corner wallpaper, and you had other people that thought you're destroying the foundation.
Yeah.
And so you have to know that too when you're coming into any kind of change where it's like, what do you think about removing this? And you're going to have some people that are like, oh, that little, the wasp nest in the attic. Yeah, you can get rid of that thing. And other people that are like, you're destroying everything we've built.
You are ruining our house.
Yeah.
And that's so that's part of the challenge of being a leader. At some point, you're going to have to make a decision that somebody doesn't like. And pretty much every decision, you will have some people who don't like it.
Yeah.
But if it's the right thing for what God has called you to do, whether it's in your family or in your job, sometimes you just got to take those bullets. And sometimes you have to keep improving. How are we going to talk about this? Who are we going to talk to about this? How do we get the communication rollout and stuff? So, so here is the big announcement at 25 minutes in.
Here we go.
And let me start with the why.
Ooh.
So, church history of Grace Church. After we had the multi-site, and it was a campus to daughter strategy, and it reached the point where it needed to be a daughter. We needed to cut the cord. And because we had burned out our whole staff on getting it going, nobody on staff was ready to take it. At that time, we called the Free Church, the district we're a part of, and the church planting director at that time was going through a major upheaval in his life and did not have the time to give us. And so what we realized is we just need to go back to one location, circle the wagons, fix some of our organizational things, and move on forward from health with that. And that's when Whitefields called, and we realized this still can be a daughter or a niece, I guess. And so we were able to work with them. It's still a gospel community. It's great. I love it. I think it's a huge success story.
Yeah.
The staff that got burned out, now 3 churches have pastors that are good fits for them. So I'm not sure we lost anything. I think we multiplied well. But when we were regathering, we thought, if we're bringing all these people back to this location, we're going to need a third service hour.
Right.
So let's put our service times at 8:30 and 10:15. And then when we need the third one, because we're going to have so many people coming back, there will be time at the end of a Sunday morning. Yeah. Like an 11:30 to 12:45 kind of thing. And then COVID happened. And we stayed with those service times. Well, now we have other concerns.
Sure.
And overflowing our Sunday services in the sanctuary is not one of them.
No.
But we are having pressure points in Grace Latino. They may need a second service soon. We're finding out that a half hour between services is really tough for people with kids to attend both a class and a service.
Sure.
You run a youth ministry that starts at 8:30.
That's its own problem.
That's its own problem. And we're finding, as we've been interviewing a lot of the younger people, young families, 20-somethings, 8:30 just is not a time they're going to come to church.
Yeah.
For a class or a worship service. So what about changing our service times to solve some of these problems, or at least to address them? That's a big change for people who are used to a certain way of doing it.
Yeah.
But if you understand why,
sure,
we would like to be 9 o'clock and 10:30.
Yay.
Because there's a psychological effect between 9 o'clock and an 8 o'clock anything. It gives the people who are doing the ministries in that first service a little more sleep before they have to get here and a little more time to get ready for what they're doing.
Yeah, because if you don't know, like our music ministry, for example, what time do they have to practice on a standard Sunday? 7:15?
7 to 7:15.
7 to 7:15
is when they get here.
Now, some of you who grew up and you wake up at 3 a.m. every morning, I know that's not a concern for you. That's a concern for me. Right?
So yeah, being able to start at 9 is nicer. And then the passing period going from 30 minutes to 15 minutes allows for people to do more, to do both hours without taxing their kids as much. I know it's only 15 minutes, but again, not having to deal with some of those things, it does make a difference.
Yeah.
And
it means our youth ministry morning hour can start at 9, which, like you said, is a big psychological difference for those kids.
I know my 14-year-old is happy to hear that.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. And they're just to get them a little more awake and ready for the day. And also so that they're fully ready and engaged for the second service to be part of the community there.
So we're going to run over a little bit on this half hour because I want to tell you a little bit about the process.
Mhm.
Again, to dispose of any notion that I just decided this for everybody.
Mhm.
So Bert, one of our elders, is the one who pitched the idea to me because we were thinking about starting a young adult, young family, open small group on Sunday mornings.
Mhm.
And he said that should run 9 to 10, not 8:30 to 9:30.
Hmm.
And he was willing to just do it independently. And I thought, well, if they have kids, that won't work.
Right.
But it started the hamster wheel in my brain working. And then I thought, well, why are we having the service times we have? And then I thought, well, for a reason that doesn't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
let's think about this.
Mhm.
So then I brought it up at the staff level, ready for all sorts of pushback. And everyone in the room within 10 seconds is like, 9 o'clock? Yes.
Yeah, good.
Let's do it.
Love it.
The only discussion was the passing time. Is it 15 or should we keep it at 30?
Mhm.
Good discussion. So then we had an elder deacon meeting last Saturday where they all happened to be in the room at the same time. And I thought, well, these are the two elected boards tasked with leading our church.
Mhm.
Let's see what they think. Immediately, 9 o'clock, yeah. And some good back and forth about 10:30 versus 10:45 for the second one.
Mhm.
But there was no like, how dare you?
Yeah.
So that was good. And then the elders circled back up and said 10:30 is better than 10:45 for a variety of reasons, but not in every reason.
Yeah.
But again, there's no perfect solution.
Mhm.
Every solution is going to have, yeah, but what about this? So you have to pick which what about this you can live with.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty seamless
Mhm.
conversations.
Yeah.
So when are we going to start it? Do you know?
September 10th.
September 10th,
That's right.
which is when we're kicking everything off.
Mhm.
A new sermon series on 1st and 2nd Thessalonians.
Yep.
All of our adult ed, all of the things that are starting in the fall, the class you're going to teach.
Yeah, senior high are coming down to be with the adults in adult ed for that trimester, so they can do elements or transformation or hermeneutics or any of those classes. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm going to redo the Holy Spirit class on Wednesday nights this fall.
Mhm.
But September 10th is the big Megillah. It's the big day that
Yep.
we're launching everything. And that's when we're going to go 9 and 10:30.
9 and 10:30. Not hard to remember. Yeah,
Anyway, we filled the time pretty fast.
we did.
I hope it was worth your time. If it
Mhm.
wasn't, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we apologize
But-
profusely.
But you can't unwatch it.
Hmm.
So we will
Yeah.
try to make our podcasts as good as possible so that we don't have to apologize like this at the end.
Mhm. That you can't unhear them
We probably still will apologize though.
profusely.
All right. If you're watching this now, and I see that some of you have been, you're awesome. John, you're awesome.
Yeah,
If
ready?
you watch this later, you're also awesome.
Mhm.
And if you never watch it, you are awesome. And I hope somebody tells you.
Yeah. Hello, hypotheticals.
Hello, people in the other universes.